Hello, students. Welcome back to your history class. Last class, I did the mind map with you of the three orders, and we touched upon all the parts of the chapter. Today, again, we are doing the same thing, but now we're doing the notes form. Okay. So, basically, the three orders is about the European society between the 9th and the 16th centuries, where the Christian priests, land owning nobles, and peasants and we have read about the changing relationship between these three groups, which was an important factor in shaping the European history for so many centuries. Like I told you last time, the most important is the sources, and the sources will be, you know, the documents, the land ownership. Churches have kept records, the inscriptions. There are three of these, and most important is Mark Bloch and his book, The Feudal Society. This book it talks about so many things that happened in the European society between 900 to 1300 AD, especially of France. It has significant details, social relations, hierarchies, land-related affairs, cultural achievements. You know, and he has spoken about the concept of feudalism, and he also said that political history is not only about political history; it's also about the international relations and the lives of people. All this is a part of history, and not only the politics. So he has stressed on the importance of geography and the requirements, to realize the collective activities and approaches of a group of people. Then, of course, the conditions of Europe before the feudalism. What was the problem? The Germanic groups, they had taken over Italy, Spain, and France. And then, because there was no single political power, there were frequent clashes, military clashes, there were wars, there were fights, and everybody wanted a power on the land. Everybody wanted the power on the land. Uh, you know, the social institution was therefore revolved around the control of the land, the ownership of the land. And Christianity was the religion of the land, and it spread almost in the whole of Europe. The church was not a religious institution, but it was also political power, and the church was a major landholder in Europe. Finally, feudalism. What is feudalism? The meaning of the word feudalism. It means feud. Basically, feud is a piece of land. It's derived from the German word feud. It refers to a society that was developed in the medieval France, and later this society also existed in England and Italy. And feudalism was a system that centered around the principles of land related matters. The historians use the term feudalism to describe economic, legal, political, and social relations that existed in Europe. And you have to know about all these. Should know about the economic life, the political life, art, architecture, everything. So, what were the features of feudalism in Europe? Uh, it emerged later, and it spread in the whole of Europe. It refers to the agricultural production, which was based on the relationship between the lords and the peasants, where the peasants, they had to cultivate the land. Okay, not only their own land but also the land of the lords. And in lieu of the labor, in lieu of the service, they received military protection from the lords, because in those days the life was very difficult, considering everybody, there were constant wars. So of course, protection was very important, and they received this protection from the lord, and in return they had to give some service. All right. And the lords also decided that the judicial matters of the peasants. Uh, they also carried out justice. So the lords was a proprietor of lands and also the peasants' fortune. So besides economic aspect, feudalism now started to cover political and social aspect also. Then there was a history of the name France. Okay, there was a province in the Roman Empire called Gaul, which had a big coastline, mountain ranges, long rivers, forests, etc. And there was a German tribe called the Franks, and they gave their name to Gaul, and it later on became France. So by 6th century, this region was a kingdom under the rule of Christian Frankish or French, and they got strengthened when Charlemagne was given the title of Holy Roman Emperor by the Pope around 800 AD. Now the three orders, there were three orders. The French priests were of the view that the people have to be a part of any one section of the society or any one order, and this depended according to their occupation. There's even a bishop quote where it says that here below some pray, others fight, and others still work. So basically, there were three sections. One was the one that prayed, another one was fight, and finally there were people who work. So the three orders of society were generally the clergy, the nobility, and the peasantry. The first order, the clergy, I have spoken a lot about it in my last video. Okay, basically, the Christians of Europe, they were the clerks of the church. They were the first order. And about those bishops and clerics was the head of the Western church, that is the Pope who lived in Rome. Now, the Catholic Church, it was the most dominant body and it did not even depend on the king. The church had its own land, their own laws, and they even, you know, uh, uh, the land was given to them by the kings, and they were even allowed to, collect taxes. So, then we have spoken all about all this, okay? Then they collected 1/10 of the produce the peasants produced, which was called teeth, and they also got money from donations. The riches would give donations saying, okay, my relative died, and take money for his afterlife. The superstition existed. Monks and monasteries, there were lots of Christians who were devout, and they opted to live isolated, in contrast to the clergy who lived in towns and villages. They lived in religious communities which were called abbeys or monasteries, away from the human settlement. And monks, they wanted to stay, their life was different from priesthood. And just a minute. So then we spoke about the monks and monasteries, and we know that the monks were not allowed to get married, and even females were allowed to become nuns, and even the nuns could not get married, and they had to live in abbeys, these communities away from the main place, and they had to keep themselves busy all the time. So they had to do lots of manual labor like farming, etc. And they were not allowed to get married. And most of the abbeys were single sex communities. That means the men and the women, they lived separately in different abbeys. The two most well-known monasteries of that time are Saint Benedict and Cluny. Then the relation between the church and the society, we spoke about this also. Then there's the second order, the nobility. Then we spoke about the manorial estate. All this has been spoken about at length in my last video. Okay. How were the knights a distinctive group? So, I want you to merge these two videos, otherwise last video would become too long. I have shown you a mind map and I've told you all about these. So I want you all to sit, we'll talk about this. This was not touched upon in the last video. So there were lots of processes that were affecting the social and the economic relations. Number one was the environment. That means now Europe went through a extreme climatic change, and the growing season of crops reduced. And finally, by 11th century, the warm phase came in, and increase in temperature again had a very good impact on agriculture. Now peasants had a longer growing season, and soil could be easily plowed, and this resulted in the expansion of agriculture. So remember the two things, the crisis of the 4th century, where there was a climatic change and suddenly the growing season went down. And then again in the 11th century, there's a warm phase that comes and the growing season increases. The second factor was the land use. Now, agricultural technology used by peasants in the beginning was very primitive. So they had to use wooden plow, okay, and it could only scratch the surface at that time. And then finally they got those plows with the metal tips, so it would go deeper. So fields, initially when they were using primitive methods, they had to dig it with their hands, okay, and they had to do this once every 4 years. And so agriculture was very, very labor demanding. It was also an unproductive method of crop rotation was in use at that time, because in that time they used to divide the land into two parts, and in one there were winter wheats were sown, in the other autumn plants were sown. So basically, at some point or the other, there was some part of the land which was vacant, which was empty. So the even the multiple cropping method was used was very bad, and so this was a system, or it even destroyed the fertility of the soil, and it caused frequent famines. uh, there was chronic malnutrition. Poor became more poor. The lords were very adamant of not increasing their money, their income, and it was very difficult to even increase the output from the land. So what did they do is they started to force the peasants to work on the manorial estates for more time. And like I have like current also, in rural areas right now also, there is no fixed amount of time to be used. Uh, so they took advantage of that, and they were letting them work for a longer period of time. Now the technology changes that came after the primitive use. Later on, how did the technology changes came? That came in the 11th century, when the warm phase had started. Like I told you about the heavy iron trip plows, so they would go more deeper into the soil, and it really helped, changing the texture of the soil. Then there were shoulder harnesses which were replaced, the neck harnesses of the animals. So now it allowed animals to wield more power. If you tie an animal with the neck and then make them plow, and you harness them with the shoulder, of course they can pull in more power when you use the shoulder. All right. Then use of iron in the horseshoes, it prevented lots of foot decay of the horses. Also, they increased the use of wind and water energy. It you know Water powered mills were established. Wind powered mills were established for grinding corn and pressing grapes. Then there was an introduction of the three field system instead of the two. And in that, a peasant could grow two out of the three fields by sowing one crop in autumn, another in spring, and half later. So they could grow wheat in autumn in one field. Second field, they could grow peas or beans and lentils. That would happen during spring. And then they would grow oats or barleys for horses also. So the third field was generally left fallow, that is empty. And by that, they could rotate the use of three fields every year. Now there was an improvement in the agricultural technology. There was an instant enhancement in food produced from every unit of land. Greater use of plants like peas and beans, and increase the protein diet of the Europeans, and a better source of fodder for animals. Now cultivator could produce more food from land. The average holding of the peasants' farm shrank from 100 acres to 20 to 30 acres. Uh, so now small holdings, it reduced the requirement of labor, and they could be efficiently cultivated, which gave them time for other creative activities. Okay. And now during the 11th century, what happened is the personal bonds which were based on feudalism had weakened. The three orders had weakened. The relationship between them had weakened. Now the lords, they asked for rent in cash instead of kind. So instead of taking 1/10 of the produce of the peasants, they wanted cash. And also peasants found it easier because they could sell their crops to now traders. And the increased use of money began to influence prices, and it became higher in times of the poor harvest. So now, because of all this, a fourth order came into being. Okay, because of this new agricultural technology, agriculture had a great boom. There was a great production in agriculture, and this of course meant lots of money to the peasants. So there were three areas that gained the most, that is the population, trade, and towns. Population rose because of a good food available, increased lifespan. The average population, the life expectancy increased, so an average European could now live 10 years longer. Okay. Then the growth of population, it resulted in development of towns. and peasants needed a place to sell their produce also and buy tools and products. So this led to creating those trade centers where they could go and sell their produce and buy the things that they require. Okay, so the towns developed along the large castles, bishops, estates, or large churches. Now, instead of services, people started to pay tax. Okay, so they paid tax to the who were the owners of the land on which the town stood. The towns, they offered the prospect of paid work and freedom to young people of peasantry. So uh, there was a proverb in that days which was "town air makes free." It was a very popular saying. Okay, so what happened is many serfs, they escaped from their masters and they hid themselves in the town. And there was this rule that if you can successfully hide for 1 year and 1 day uh, without being discovered, then they could become free men. So they said town air makes free. They would go and hide in a town, and after 1 year, 1 day, they became free peasants. There was also a large number of shopkeepers and merchants. Okay, and this, like lawyers and bankers, and the bigger towns, they had a bigger population, and this made the fourth order, which was the service people, the traders, the bankers, the lawyers. So now guilds started to being made. Guilds were basically, crafted industry was organized into a guild, and these guilds, they controlled the quality, the price, the sale of goods of that particular industry. The guild hall was a part of every town where the heads of all guilds met, and due to expansion of trade and commerce, town merchants became wealthy and powerful, and they competed with the power of the nobility. Okay, then we spoke about cathedral towns yesterday. Crisis of the fourth century was done. Social unrest. So the income of lords was now declining because of falling prices and agricultural products, and also the traders were asking for a rise in wage. In desperation, they tried to give up money contracts and revive labor services, and this was opposed by all peasants. Just a minute. Okay, I'm sorry. Where was I just took a pause over there. Yeah, so the money of the lords was decreasing, and in panic, they started to revive labor services, and this was opposed by the peasants. Okay, and the better educated and more prosperous ones, they started opposing all this, and they revolted. Okay, so although the revolts were ruthlessly crushed, but one significant thing occurred, and that is brutal intensity in the areas which experienced economic growth. And this was a sign of peasants' attempt for securing, their gains. They wanted to keep their profit with themselves. So the aggression of peasants made it certain that the feudal order could not be now reinstated, and the lords were now able to crush the rebellions, but they were not able to reinstate themselves to the old feudal privileges. So, because of all this, there were some political changes that took place in the 15th and 16th century, and those changes are development in the political sphere now was very parallel to the social processes. So in the 15th and 16th century, there was an emergence of the triumphant rulers in Europe. Okay, and this stimulated the social changes of 13th and 14th century as the feudal system started to weaken down. Now the new states that were developed and the economic changes that were occurring, they were significant for Europe because there was new state coming up. There's a fourth order that had so much power that now they could compete with the nobility, and and all because the no the nobility and the clergies were so worried that the feudal system is going to go and the privileges are going to go. They started to panic, and they started to oppress the peasants more, and the peasants started to really fight back, and there was also social unrest. Okay, so the historians started to call the kings the new monarch, and now the kings like King Louis XI in France, Maximilian in Austria, King Henry VII in England, and Isabel and Ferdinand in Spain. These were the absolute monarchs. They started the process of organizing standing armies. and a permanent bureaucracy and national taxation. So what happened is now they're bringing in unity. Now, instead of depending on the clergies or the nobilities for their armies, they started to have an army on their own. Okay, and they started to impose taxation throughout the state. That means even the nobles would have to pay taxes in Spain, and they began to play a role in the European expansion overseas. The monarchs, they dispensed with the system of feudal levies for their armies, and they initiated professionally trained, equipped with gun and siege artillery directly under their control. Okay, so the resistance of the nobility collapsed in the face of the military efficiency of the king. So although the nobilities were resisting this change, but because of the army that the king had, the nobility did not stand a chance. The centralized power did not establish easily. The centralized power took time to establish, but it established. Okay, the nobility managed a good transfer from being opponents to the new regime to being the loyalists. And the king was at the center of this big change, and a network of patron client relationship now developed. So, all rulers, whether they were powerful or weak, they required assistance of those who could control power, which could be arranged or acquired by way of money. The merchants and the bankers acquired an important role because now they could solve problems of money for the kings by lending money to them. So they got access to the royal court, and kings thus made way for non feudal constituents in the state scheme. So there were people who were not in the feudal system, who were not on the top list of the feudal system, but they became a part of the state scheme because they had money, they could lend money to the king. And later, the history of France and England was to be shaped by these changes in the power structure. These are some of the keywords that you should know. These are some passages. So with this, I end your final revision of the chapter, the three orders. I hope now this chapter is very clear with you all, and you all should be able to answer all questions from your practice your map work more. With this, I end today's class. Children, stay home, stay safe, take care, keep learning. Thank you.